Hey, what's up everyone? It's Oakley and we are here to welcome back Norsca. As you can see, they've been chilling out for a while out of our view. They've been out here in the jungles over in Skeggi, the foothold in Lustria, and looks like they're finally ready to rejoin us in Warhammer 2. So as I said, we're going to be here to welcome them back from vacation, and along with us, the viewer, well, they also have some other people here to welcome them. It's going to be a massive horde of lizardmen coming out at them, out of the jungles, out of the swamps, out of the ponds, and they are vast in number. Lots of temple guards, skinks, slan mage priests, lots of bastildons, stegodons, krokgar as well. Just tons of junk spewing out of the forest. The pterodactyls with bolas, or pterodons, excuse me, and yeah, a bunch of these little guys who would be ferocious in and of themselves, but they're trailing behind ancient stegodons, which are, dinosaurs mounted with lizard Aztecs and machine guns. I don't quite know how formidable you can get, but yeah, that's all coming bearing down at us. So enough of the lizardmen. We've seen these guys plenty thus far. As I said, we're here to welcome back the return of Norsca. So we'll take a look at them real quick. I did want to give us a quick spotlight to the map Skeggi itself. It's made by, obviously, the community, so it is a beautiful one at that. You can look it up, just download or do a search in the workshop for, map Skeggi. And it was made by Kazad, and he did a fantastic job. The main centerpiece is going to be the keep back here, and this is going to be where Throg, my ally, is going to be deployed. And this thing is awesome on a little bit of peninsula, and in the bay you can see a bunch of ships that have been placed out in here as well. So they're going to be not only out in the water, but some of them are going to be here docked on the shore. So you have some docks on either side. These are going to make a little bit of a nice area for, strategic deployment, holding back of reserves. Same thing with up here. And then you have a bunch of meandering, wandering streets between these Viking longhouses and all kinds of cool stuff. I love this shantytown raised up. Reminds me a little bit of Lake Town. Yeah, this thing is dope. And then the front lines as well, continuing to be awesome. You have a bunch of walls up through here that I like the fact that it's not completely encircled. There is a lot of permeability here, but these walls are great in that, they do create some choke points here and there, at a corner, or here somewhere to anchor your flank. And then you can also place units up on the walls. So in this case, I do have some of my Javelineers. So let's take a look at our deployment. And show off some of the units if you're a little bit rusty. In my front lines, just holding this choke, because I know this is going to be very important. I have, my Marauder Spearmen integrated with some Fimir Warriors and Marauder Berserkers. The Berserkers do have the cool Frenzy ability, where essentially the more they're in combat, the more their stats do rack up. So that's pretty dope. And let's look at these Fimir Warriors with their giant armor-sundering, armor-piercing weapons, looking very formidable aside their human warriors. So this is a pretty dense, compact blob that we have going on, and this is obviously going to be held down with some more fancy doodads here from the Norscan roster. You have two Mammoths. One of them is going to be mounted by Wolfric. Let's take a look at him over here, seated atop his throne, atop his Mammoth, with his war drums a-beating, staring off into the distance. So yeah, these Mammoths are going to help with my guys tank out a lot of damage, target out enemy monsters, and of course they do have a little bit of encouragement, especially with the Chaos War Shrine here, having some leadership buffs for my guys, keeping them in the fight for as long as possible. And let's take a look at one of my guys reading his book up here. He's on vacation. He's very much benefiting from the relaxation, reading the last couple pages before he has to get back to work of defending his settlement. But yeah, that's what we have in the front lines. I also have a frost worm here, so he has some awesome breath spells that I'll be using against the clusters of the enemy. I am forming a bit of a concave, hoping to get the enemy tied up here, because I have one last trick up my sleeve on this front, and this is going to be a sorcerer with the lore of fire. Yeah, a shaman sorcerer, so he can have the burning head, and that burning head is just going to be bouncing back and forth through here the entire time that we're holding this pass, just to try and do as much damage as possible. Now, my ally is just going to be an AI force, so don't expect too much in terms of strategy this fight, but, I just wanted to throw numbers at this defense in depth. But yeah, we can look at him. So he has Norse controls, not too much different from your standard trolls. I mean, they look very similar. He has, again, the Fimir Warriors this time. I think these are the variants with great weapons, so having a little bit more a bonus versus large. So they're going to be over, up front. Most of the Allies' forces are going to be up through the keep. They will be coming down here soon, but for the time being, they have been deployed up here just to get, I guess, a vantage point on everything. So a lot of just random warriors, and then some of the bigger Norscan giants, which are looking pretty derpy, but still glorious. Is that a tree stump coming out of his skull? Pretty scary. And then a bunch of trolls here who seem to be melting at the very, dim lighting coming up here as the sun rises in the jungle. They're already melting, so they best get into the fight before they melt entirely. Some more Norse controls, some more units sprinkled throughout, and then you have Throg himself standing by at the keep with his Werekin henchmen right beside him. And man, that keep looks freaking awesome. Over on this left flank, continuing to put a bunch of guys. I didn't want to throw everything at the choke, but yeah, you have some units over here. You have a Skin Wolf Werekin with some of his buddies, these Skin Wolves with a little bit of armor, but these are super scary. Anti-large regenerating frenzy forces, and if you look at them closely, Sia did a great job. Those little, what looks like, cloth strewn across them. Some of it is cloth. But a fair amount of that, I think, yeah, this one here and the little tendrils along the arm, those are all supposed to be bits of skin, what's left over from the previous body as the werewolf within ripped itself outside. So it's pretty crazy lore stuff. I also have a couple more reserves here, some more marauders, etc., javelineers, and of course, the must bring, I believe it's Soul Crusher here. Let's double check that real quick. Yeah, Soul Crusher, Regiment of Renown, War Mammoth. So I got a lot of stuff in reserve. But let's get to the battlefront, as the enemy is going to try and commit. Chameleon Skinks up through the front. I have my Javelineers, the Hunters with the bonus versus large, going to be throwing some stuff into the enemy, but they're just going to be trying to heal right through it. But my guys have been given strict orders to hold the front. And let's go ahead and get a zoom at the first engagement as the enemy comes plodding through here and crashing into our lines. Krokgar going to be one of the very first into battle, and he's just going to pounce right on through the lines, trying to get at my sorcerer, it looks like. But he's going to have a rude awakening here with some javelins in the back. Going to start to puncture him. He's going to begin to heal right through here, but it is all doing a lot of disruption. The Stegodons, the battering rams of the front line, going to be hammering my guys. Now I have my own giant monsters to deal with them, but still not doing nearly enough damage here. You can see my guys taking a heavy beating. But as more and more enemy stream into the battlefront, this is where I'm going to try and trigger some of my spells. But good God, the stream of lizards seems to be unending. Let's take a look at this from their perspective up top. Oh, and there's that breath spell. How much damage did that do? A fair amount against these Temple Guard, but they're going to keep coming. And here it goes. The Burning Head going to make its way right through the front line, burning a path in front of my own guys. That's going to be awesome. And take a look at this. It's going to come, hit the wall, and actually bounce back into, once again, double dipping on the enemy with this spell. So I'm getting tons of damage. They seem to not be able to outrun it. So that was brutal. And then here he goes, the ethereal longship as well, crisscrossing back and forth through the front line. So if we pop out and look at the HUD, yeah, that shattered a lot of the early ranks, but those were just skinks, and more numbers are going to pour in. We definitely got to hold out. And let's take a look at this from the vantage point of our defenders. They're getting assaulted by the Pterodons with their Fire Leech bolas. But man, look at the carnage unfolding at the choke point. And it's just that this, oh man, and in the distance, you know, like water, they're finding every little gap in our defense to pour through. Really epic. So we're going to try and hold. My own forces are starting to get rather thin. Oh, another breath spell in there. Really nice against the Temple Guard. But yeah, here is where Throg is going to wade into the fight with his allies, leading them down the front. So you can see them. So here's Throg himself, leading all the guys. So here they come. The second he gave the order, everyone's falling with him. All the marauders coming out of their houses, their long houses, barred with tusks of all the prey they've killed. So they're going to come out and get a couple more to adorn their house. But we'll see how many make it out of this battle. So yeah, it looks like a lot is going to be poured into here. The enemy getting a ton of banishment spells, vortex spells up onto us. I really love the look on that one. Looks glorious. Yeah, so much damage. The enemy's still pouring through. I do have a couple units that were, you know, the War Shrine did rout, but they're going to recover. I'm going to try and hold the flank against Kroq-Gar to shut him down. Let's take a look at this side where the enemy is going to pour through. We have just a couple units going to be holding strong. This Norscan giant being an absolute monster, holding out with some marauders with great weapons. My guys are still holding in reserve, but this choke point is going to be held just with few defenders. They're going to be doing every little bit that they can. Oh my god. Crazy stuff. Let's bounce back to this front where it looks like most of the pressure, like I keep saying, is going to be taking place. And I'm waiting to see some more breath spells. Oh, here comes another burning head. Cackling as it goes. Unfortunately, it looks like the buildings are not going to bounce it back. When I was casting that, I was really hoping that it would. But it looks like it's going to continue to go through and then fade out. Will it get through to the next guys? No, it fades out. But anyways, I was hoping to get a little bit of a doubling back. But those Fire Leech Bolas are actually being pretty terrifying. We're not able to do very much. And as they throw stuff into the masses of our relatively unarmored guys, they're going to be super punishing. And yeah, the enemy has busted through this position where we're trying to hold with that giant, but he's getting overwhelmed on this front. So yeah, here comes the encirclement of our guys, getting all the way back. Looks like they do double around to try and complete an encirclement. It's at this point that I'm going to try and retreat with some of my forces. We're kind of doomed here. You can see all of our guys are going to be getting a mass rout. Not quite sure what happened. It may be the surround here on top of the spells and the Fire Leech Bolas, but Throg is committed to the center of this. Let's get a head-down view on the ridiculousness that's going on. Maybe even take a look at it on whoever's... Nope, the battlements have been completely cleared. So this is going to be yielded to the enemy. But we're going to get a mass rout here. Not looking good. And to top it all off, a banishment spell going to be cast in the center. Grabbing up friend and foe alike. They are determined to wipe us off the map. But as they punch through... This giant's still holding, and he's going to be relieving pressure on my guys, allowing me to reform somewhat. Some skinks have decided to be a bit impetuous and pour right on through here, but now they're going to be face-to-face with these werewolves. And the werekin also in here somewhere. And they're just going to tear through the front lines with giddy ease. These do as much damage, it would seem, as, you know, the Gorbulls and Minotaurs dealing with goblins. Just playing around with ragdolls here. So the skink attempt to get around the flank is going to be rebuffed. And here he is, that werekin. But the giant's still holding out, so if I can get those skinks off the battlefield, I can perhaps swing around and help relieve the pressure. Meanwhile, over here, I do have some of my mammoths committed, and the frost worm has been pulled back to try and reinforce. I'm going to try and save some of my javelineers, or my javelins, the marauder hunters, back into my lines. But unfortunately, I do get stopped by these skinks, and just as I'm trying to pull through, they're going to stop me just with their bodies, and then I'm going to get firebombed by the fire leeches. I'm going to try and come to the rescue here. The enemy does dive down to try and stop me. They're really keen on preventing me from doing anything with these forces. And with that, I mean, it looks like most of my guys are going to be left off. The mammoth here with the war shrine has no one to it left to encourage. He's going to get machine gun and chased off the battlefield. Perhaps I can start to get some leadership buffs and rally some of the flanking forces here. And it looks like I do have some more guys off in the distance. They should be pulled back to the battle. Right now what they're thinking is they're contemplating running away. Not quite sure how the battle is going to turn out. But knowing Lustria, you may be better off committing to a battle than going into the jungles, where who knows what diseases or monsters are going to consume you. At least in the battle here, you do have some semblance of hope in terms of survival. Out in the jungles, not quite sure you got that. So once their senses get back to them, they should be recommitting to the fight, and we'll be able to perhaps rally the survivors on this side if the enemy allows us to. Throg, meanwhile, is going to be continuing to keep the enemy pretty heavily pinned. But he's fighting a downhill battle here. Having tons of fun in the process, but yeah, it's not going to last. So many Stegodons The Slan Mage Priest slowly wading through the carnage. And just banishing people left and right. Taking tons of damage. And yeah, just surveying the carnage. But yeah, they're going to clean up our rear lines here. But luckily, the sacrifice, or I wouldn't even say sacrifice, they're giddily slaughtering units here, and it's all going to distract our guys, whether or not they intended it to. I think it's going to distract their guys, I should say, which is going to allow us to have a little bit more of an easy time cleaning up the forces in the back. My Frostworm did come in here, had a nice breath spell, which actually helped shatter some of these temple guards, or rout them at least. And then I'm going to take off. So this giant who's been sitting pretty in this position is going to actually be able to walk away with his life. That's pretty awesome. So I just wanted to help him out with my Frostworm. And then I'm going to fly back to my keep. Up over here. Oh, there goes that ethereal longship once again. Using it as many times as I can to try and whittle away the numbers. The enemy is advancing a little bit more slowly here. A little cautious. They only have 2 of their beasties up through the front. I believe this is this a horned one or a Scar veteran? Looks like that's the leftovers of a horned one, yeah. Anyways, the enemy is going to be seen off fairly easily. Both my mammoths doing a ton of damage, not only because, well, they're mammoths with huge tusks, etc., but I can pop a whole bunch of abilities, and we also have my Marauder Hunters with javelins in the back. Going to be really helping out. So luckily, this is kind of the scrubs of the enemy army. I mean, you have a bunch of regular Saurus warriors, skinks, and just standard Basildons here. But the real meat is going to be coming up. Temple guards, ancient stegodons, a lot more of the value stuff is going to be coming up. So I have to try and hold desperately, which is why I've got some more units up in the high ground waiting to unload. You can see with their range, they can just about cover. And I figured, you know, the temple guard are committing. This is when I need to start peppering them with some javelins. They're not necessarily intended against the temple guard, but I'm going to throw anything I can at them just to whittle away their numbers. My guys in the back here are resting and enjoying the show of the mammoths. They're going to be cheering them on, and they're going to be very happy that they took the time, you know, several years ago to not only capture these mammoths in the cold northern chaos wastes, but also transport them all the way to the New World. That must have been a crazy endeavor. Perhaps they brought them as little mammoth pups and raised them. But yeah, it was definitely a worthwhile investment because they're holding the line here. Ancient Stegodon gonna try and hold out, doing a pretty good job. But let's take a look at the bewildered look of those skinks on top, manning the machine guns. They're gonna try and take on Wolfreg, doing pretty good. Looks like they've forced him back somewhat. A swipe of the tusk is not gonna pierce the outer hide of that Ancient Stegodon. But it looks like we're starting to get a little bit of exhaustion at him. I'm taking a big beating. This is where I'm going to pop Sword of Torgold and a bunch of other abilities that is really going to help me put on the DPS here. But just as the enemy is starting to crumble, they're going to commit in some more guys. Ancient Stegodon coming in. So if the enemy had a little bit more coordination, like if they pulled everything that was left into one big mailed fist, they could do a lot of damage. But fortunately for us, they've been scattered around, trying to deal with the remainder of our guys, you know, all around the flanks. And even Throg, again, pulling a lot of units out of position. 2 Feral Bastildons and a very high health Stegodon. So he is going to be, you know, not knocked down. And he's not going to let it get to him. He's going to finally pull himself up and hold this out to the last. We'll see if he survives. We'll make sure to try and keep an eye on him. In the rear lines, we still have another Skin Wolf. My own guys deciding, as I said before, not to commit to the jungle, but to come back to the fight. Thinking that their odds are a little bit better, and I would say that's probably true at this point in the battle because a lot of the numbers are going to be committed here. Stuff on the outskirts isn't as powerful. But anyways, here comes the fight. As we've been stating, the drip drab of the enemy reinforcements is going to be their undoing. And also the fact that, well, Soul Crusher here is over here to crush their souls. Doing a ton of damage, and I haven't been able to show it all the time as the camera's been panning elsewhere, but we have been getting flaming, you know, burning heads through here, all kinds of crazy stuff. Doing all kinds of damage. And meanwhile, I'm going to pull up through with my werewolves. So they had finished cleaning up, the remainder of the enemy on that flank. And now they're going to pull through. And they do capture this Slan, the high priest, over here unawares. He's going to try and banish some of them. But my skin wolf is going to finish off these temple guards. Oh my god. Murder them. And then he's going to turn his eye over there after this roar towards that Slan. So here he comes headlong charging into it. Boom! Bounces back. So this whole battle he's been, launching himself headlong into the enemy. But this is the first time his head hits something that's harder than his own skull. So he's going to be a little bit shocked by that, but he's going to try it once more. But it looks like this time he gets a better angle off, and now we're going to be able to commit and surround against this mage. And it looks like he's going to have a hard time. He's going to pivot about and perhaps try and scream for help here. But it is going to be for naught. The Temple Guard are going to be coming in, but he is very, very low health, dropping quickly because my guys do have anti-large frenzy doing tons of damage. And it looks like we're going to be able to take him out just here. He's trying to extricate himself, but he gets killed, and I love that disappearing death animation. But now my guys can turn about and deal with these Temple Guards mano a mano. Should be a pretty even fight given the balance of the health. Yeah, these Temple Guard are very low. In a fair fight, with full health on both, Temple Guard would take it, but at this point the enemy is exhausted. I do find another little piece of prey here, which is going to be this Skink Chief. Trying to skimp rope out. You saw that blow darting my guy in the eye, and it looks to have worked. My guy did miss that assault, so he's going to load another dart. Yeah, he's doing a good job. Ooh, right to the face again. So I would be pissed if I was this werewolf. There he goes. Finally catches up to him. Up through the front line, continuing to get more spells off, clearing the way, cleansing the path, burning the dead here, not letting any infections take hold. Oh my god, doing so much. But yeah, we're going to reclaim the front lines. Our guys pouring out of this choke point where we did a lot of damage against the enemy, and all is silent in the back lines as we finally clear out. And it looks like we're going to be able to come back and finally reclaim the initial, whatever you want to call this, I wouldn't call it the high water mark because they did push further. This is the high water mark, but this is the first place where the water crested our defenses, so a lot of death here. And if we can reclaim it, it has pretty high symbolic value. My skin wolves are going to be finished off by these cold ones. They do have anti-large as well, so they should be felling my guys rather easily, I would say. Ooh, no, they do rout, but my guys are pretty low. I gotta be worried, and I am a little bit at risk of being kited here. I'm being strewn out a little bit, in the open, few and far between. This Stegodon can probably take out both of my guys over here. My Javelineers might be able to be taken out by these Chameleon Skinks and this Stegodon. And then you have Wolfreak the Wanderer, pretty low health, so I have to be a little bit worried here, not get too cocky in the end game. But it looks like the morale has completely tanked for the enemy. I guess they did at some point realize that both their leaders were dead and that they were retreating on all fronts. So to that end, they all decided to call it quits, go back into the jungle, lick their wounds, and spawn more vicious creatures from their pools to come back and maybe knock out Skeggi. But our foothold in Lustria has held, and with it we'll be able to make our advances in the future. So let's end the replay and take a look at the stats on the kills on various units. Rather impressed with the, how both of my my first two units did. These guys, Wolfric was getting some kills mano a mano, but, side by side with this Shaman Sorcerer with the Lure of Fire, both of them were getting a lot of, I wouldn't call them breath spells, but directional spells, and that's where most of the kills were. So they were really, really key for holding those choke points. Props to the rest of my guys for holding. Props to the Marauder Hunters with javelins, really helping to negate the bonuses of the enemy with all their giant monsters who, going uncontested, were already getting hundreds of kills here and there. So I definitely needed them to shut it down. My Frostworm getting a lot of kills, not only kills, but also high chevrons. That's because all the breath spells were used against Temple Guard. Very high value. Had I not gotten those off the field, they could have probably killed the rest of my infantry and probably focused down my Mammoths. who needed to stay alive to get their kills in. You can see Soul Crusher doing well, Skinned Wolves just pulverizing those skinks with 142 kills. So really well done to my army. Throg as well doing good work. Wasn't able to see if he was alive there at the end. I do believe he was. Most of his forces doing so-so, but that one Savior Giant holding down that flank was amazing. 241 kills, or sorry, 211 kills to his name, and the rest of the units, the big monsters, doing fairly well, but the Marauder Spearmen and Marauders just not holding up to them. Taking a look at the various enemy forces, not too many kills for the Skinks as you'd expect. A lot of it from this Slann Mage Priest. We saw the Vortex, or sorry, the Banishment spell cast multiple times. That was really punishing to me in the choke point. And then, of course, Ancient Stegodons just always do work. Even the Feral Bastildons as well. Doing good stuff. Krokgar's force doing well. He himself perhaps didn't perform too well. He was a bit too arrogant in that first charge. Got caught out, routed by my guys, the focus fire of the javelins, and then we kind of chased him off the battlefield after that. The rest of his force doing okay. Fair amount of work on the Temple Guard, but they got ground out. Double chevrons on some of these, on the one with 9 kills, so probably doing a lot of work against my mammoths and other big monsters. And they did help crack that initial engagement, but the real problem, I mean, with the AI was that they didn't continue in full force, pouring into the next choke point. They kind of scattered, chasing down our remnants. I think if they had been had the state of mind to hit us with everything they had and even flank a little bit, we were probably done for. But luck was on the side of Wulfric this engagement, and with it we brought victory. So that's it for this one. Hope you guys enjoyed. Stay tuned for more. I'll have a lot more battles and replays against myself and Andy Pride and other players in the near future. So check it out. We'll have Hellebron, we'll have Ilario, and we'll be showcasing all the different regiments of renown which are making a comeback. So yeah, that's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed. Stay tuned for more, and see you in the next one. Peace out.